The functional, dysfunctional family. I'll say that again. The functional, dysfunctional family. Good morning, everybody. It's time for Morning Manna, and I got a word for you on this morning. It is, if you will, the trailer for the message on this coming Sunday. As you know, we are talking about this month, fight with your faith. Fight with your faith. And Sunday, I'm going to be dealing with the whole subject matter of a fiercely dysfunctional family fighting with their faith. How about that? Well, I want to give you a trailer of it this morning, greet some people, and then get right into it. I'm going to repeat it again. Put it in the chat area. The functional, dysfunctional family. How about that? The text, the talk, the takeaway, but I'll greet some people before I get into all of that this morning. Good morning, Ella. How are you on this morning? Ari, how are you? Elder Mobley, how are you? Anna, how are you doing on this morning? Lenore, how are you? Brenda, how are you doing on this morning? Minister Sent, how are you? Carolyn, how are you on this morning? Joel, how are you on this morning? Good morning that it is. Patricia, how are you doing on this morning? Liz, how are you on this morning? I want to ask the question. And that is, good morning, Yvonne, how are you? How many of you have had to deal with family issues? Family issues. How many of you have had to deal with family issues? I want to argue that if you're in a family, you've had to deal with issues. I don't know that it is a family that is totally functional, and we're going to deal with the functional dysfunctional family. The functional dysfunctional family. It's kind of like a trailer, if you will, of this message that I will minister in our family Sunday, that is the fierce faith of a functional family. How about that? How about that? Good morning, Brother Nesbitt. How are you on this morning? Vaughn, how are you on this morning? Vicky, how are you on this morning? Pastor Leah, how are you? Dawn, how are you? Laura, how are you? Good morning, Erica. How are you on this morning? Great morning it is. Grand morning it is. You're right. It's Happy Friday. Happy Friday. It is 2 days before Sunday. How about looking at it that way? This Sunday, in addition to me talking about the fierce faith of a functional family, say that fast 3 times. It is absolutely going to be a great Sunday, in as much as that we're going to have back to school Sunday, celebrating the kids, pushing them out, making sure that they are successful in school. With Jesus in education, you're unstoppable. A lot of things going on. Don't miss it. Don't miss it on this Sunday. Good morning, Jan. How are you? Linda, how are you? Verena, how are you? Pastor Richard, how are you? Let's get into the word on this morning. The functional, dysfunctional families. The functional, dysfunctional families. How about that? Family is unique to everyone. You're not here outside of a family. You got here through a family. A family is the channel, it is the door in which we enter into the earth. When you came here, there was a family. Now, the functionability of the family or the dysfunction of the family, that's where we got to deal with things. Even Adam and Eve were dysfunctional. So, how do you deal and be a functional, dysfunctional family? Here's the text. The text is Genesis 37:4. Genesis 37:4, and that is, but his brothers saw that their father loved him more than his brothers. They hated him and could not speak peacefully to him. You know this story. You know the story. The story is, of course, Israel and his son Joseph, giving him the coat of many colors, which culturally was a sign that he was most favored. Additionally, this coat was intricately woven, and it took a great deal for something to be sewn like that, because during that time, they didn't have clothes in that manner. So, to that end, when he got that coat, it was on. Then he started dreaming. That made it worse. How do you get through that kind of a situation? The functional, dysfunctional family. The first thing is you got to be mindful of the DNA. You got to be mindful of the DNA. The DNA carries dysfunction. Oh, yes, it does. Abraham and Sarah, that's right. They were a little favoritism within the family when they had Isaac. They said that, you know what, Ishmael, you got to go. You got to go because we're not going to put our inheritance in your hands. Well, that went to Isaac and Rebekah, who favored Jacob over Esau. And then Jacob's name is turned to Israel, and now he's doing the same thing. Be mindful that dysfunction can be DNA, in the DNA, if you will. Number two is this: destiny is in dysfunction. What do you mean by that? Destiny is also in dysfunction. What what I'm saying here is that when God puts a dream in Joseph, he places destiny in him as well. You can have both and at the same time. Destiny as well as dysfunction. Well, how are you ever going to get to the destiny? The third thing is this: you got to be determined. You got to be determined. We already know this. Joseph was determined. He went from the pit to the palace to the prison and back to the palace. He was determined. So even in the midst of the dysfunction of your family, you can be functional when you decide that you are going to be determined. What's your takeaway this morning? Your takeaway is this: dysfunction sometimes and many times is by design. Let me explain. Put it in the chat area. Dysfunction sometimes and many times can be by design. There are times when God so orchestrates things in our lives that if we don't have opposition, if we don't have some ups and downs, if we don't have some valleys and mountains, if we realize that every day is not going to be walking in a bed of ease, and if we don't know that the thing that God has placed in us will never come out of us, here it is. Let me give it to you. Joseph turns around in the 50th chapter of Genesis and said, "What you all did for evil, God meant it for good." He would have never come to a place of that type of forgiveness had he not gone through what he went through. It would have never bubbled up. It would have never been able to come out unless he had to be confronted. Dysfunction, many times and sometimes, is by design. The Lord be with you today. May his face shine upon you and give you peace. If you're a life changer, I need to see you in the house. 10 o'clock service is going to be on. All kind of surprises, as well as the word coming forth. God bless you. I'll see you Monday with more Morning Manna. Have a great weekend.